Hello friends, welcome to part 2 of the Don Jones. So you may have guessed, or you might not, that what we are trying to look for in this assessment is mostly your problem solving skills. You can see other things as well, how you respond to stress, how much insight the person has. You can kind of see what they give power to, what are the things that are most pressing in their life. Could be the family they love, or maybe some addictions that they have. You can see some of those things come up, as well as how they relate to others, primarily with the goat. We'll get to that later. But basically the first two images look at your problem solving to external problems. The river is exactly that. It's an external problem. How do you get from one side to the other? Did you use the resources inside your backpack, your inner resources? Did you look to your surroundings and use resources from around you? Or did you not do either? Did you go in impulsively, or did you not cross the river? And you can also look at how big is the river, how dangerous looking is the river. Here it says that it's a deep river. I don't always say that. I don't think I usually say that. And so it's interesting, kind of like the draw a person or rain assessment. You can see how big they interpret their stresses. Like, is the water, is the rain, is it something that they can handle, or does it look really scary and intimidating? So all those things kind of go into the first picture. And the second picture, the goat, represents people. When you have conflict with other people, how do you kind of respond? It's not realistic. I've seen people really bully this poor goat. I've seen them drop the goat off the cliff. I've seen weapons get involved with the goat. So I'm not saying this is a literal that you handle conflict with other people by bringing out, some kind of weapons, but what does that say about how did you interact with it? Was it hasty? Did you judge it as negative when it might have been neutral? Did you try to think about the goat and empathize with it? Were you afraid of it? Were you just angry at it for being in your way? Like, those are the kinds of things that we're more so looking at, Did you want an immediate problem, or did you really stall here with the goat? We talked about having a negative perception of it, but what about the opposite? Did you have a nurturing response to it? Did you feed the goat? Did you try to take the goat with you? A lot of therapists and people in this kind of field, being as nurturing as we are, often see the goat and we want to bring it with us. Keep it safe, which is kind of an interesting thing to see, given that the goat is already in its natural habitat. It already is safe, and so there isn't a need to bring it with us for its own safety. So what does that kind of say about us? Something to think about. But anyway, so I have the same paper here that I had before, and it has a bunch of process questions for each of the 4 images. So we're going to start with picture 1. So some of the things you can ask them to kind of work through all these things, you don't get an answer just by looking at the picture. You get it from talking to the person. Why did they do this? What does this mean to them? Is it something that they can relate to, or was this just a fantasy person? So some of the things you can ask is, in the first picture, is what you did in your picture reflective of how you get over or get through or get across obstacles in your real life? Did it work for you? Was it an effective way to do it? Do you see yourself continuing on the path? Do you reach the goal? What motivated the person to get to the other side? What was the sequence of events that led the person to do what he or she did? How does this person go about solving problems? Was there more than one option available to the person? This one's interesting. I've seen some people come up with multiple options and then not know what to draw. So normally when I give it just talking about it, they go through plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, but you can't get that through drawing. So that is something to be aware of if they were considering other options. Was what you put down on paper the first option you thought of doing? As we said, what changed your mind? Does this happen in real life when faced with an obstacle? Is the person using inside or outside resources in the process of what they did? Did the person use something out of their backpack, personal resource? If using outside resources, did they just expect it to be there? Did they find it already there, or did they help to create it? How much effort and energy was involved in creating it? Is the person in the picture? Give an example in your life of that. They may intuitively relate to the metaphor and feel, yes, this is me, and may be invited to recall a concrete association with the self or situations. Is what you did metaphorically in the picture reflective of an approach of obstacles that is your general pattern for you? Do you want to change what you did in the picture? How would you want to do it differently? And that's an important one if we're not just staying where we are, but learning how to grow, learning other sort of strategies, other versions of wellness. You can definitely keep going with them. Well, what else could you do? What did you want to do? What is the image saying? What is in the picture? What is the image not saying? What is not in the picture? Can this person manage in their external world? Can they move forward? Or is he or she helpless? How does the person view his or her world or environment? They're saying his or her, you can do they. This was written a while ago. Just wanted to put that out there. How do they get around? How do they see themselves in their world? How do they approach and interact with their world? Are they still in touch with reality? That's important to look at for certain diagnoses. Was it a realistic kind of thing? I can tell you some of the answers that I've seen or I've done as well. Mine was first to just impulsively walk into the river, but I decided no, the current was too strong, so I decided to be a bit more strategic, examine the river, look for a place where it wasn't as strong and was a bit more soft and weak. And I tried there, and I said it still doesn't work, so I wanted to pull some wood out of my backpack to cross with, but I figured that I was the one who packed it. There's no way I did a good job packing. That definitely says something about me. So I did look to my external environment when my internal one was lacking, and I got some wood and some branches to kind of slow down the river, and then I crossed that way. My professor said to me, Colleen, do you overcomplicate things? Like, it's funny, yeah. Do you overthink things? If there's a simple solution, you could have just crossed. Why did you make it more difficult for yourself? I saw one person, I believe in my class, take their shoes off so they wouldn't get wet when they cross into the water, and that was a very good idea to be prepared and be proactive and whatnot. A friend of mine had literally A, B, C, and D ready. If it's a small stream, you just cross it. If it's kind of a bit bigger, I think she looked for a bridge. I think she assumed this is like a state park or something. It's a trail. It's an established trail. Other people must have gone across the water if the trail continues on the opposite side of the water. So she really looks to her environment and other people in her environment and other things that are established in her environment. And we went to school together. You could definitely see her looking at the school's resources. Sort of, like that, like she's not trying to reinvent the wheel, if there's a supportive environment, who's used to people doing this, and you can get some sort of, human resources or other sort of resources available, which is really cool. I think her third option was she might take a raft out of her backpack. You'll learn that her backpack was really full. She definitely had a plethora of resources. And then her fourth one was if this was like the Delaware River, anyone who's not from the Philly region, East Coast, sorry if you don't get the reference. It's a big river. It's, that she would kind of take her float and she would float until some sort of ferry or ship, and she was going to the shipping lane probably. I don't know why that would happen in the past, but so she's definitely a planner, and she has, every sort of opportunity or situation kind of prepared for already. She's anticipated it, she's planned for it, she's got backup plans. So you can see that. A lot of people just crossed the river impulsively, headstrong, didn't consider how big it was, didn't consider failing. They just walked. Yes, some people don't make it to the side. I saw one person go off a waterfall. That was even more dramatic than just being in the water. I had one person not cross. They stood and they stared and they pondered what they could do, but they weren't able to commit to anything. They're a person who was really in their head, like they really overthink things so much that they couldn't take any kind of action. So yeah, those are all great things to consider. Some people use branches or swing across like Tarzan. I think that one was my sister. Shout out to Bridget. I told this the Dondra assessment to a hairdresser one time, and I heard her using that with some of her patients after me when I was getting my hair done, obviously. And she's like, and then there's a goat. So what do you do with the goat? And it was just so nice to hear, other people kind of relating to it and enjoying it, enjoying some of the insight that you get from it. All right, stay tuned for part 3 when we go over the second picture and maybe the third picture. We'll see if we have time. All right. Bye, friends.